It's crazy to believe that it's 2 years ago
Right?
that the show was done. And I think our relationship precedes that by even about 6 to 8 months. And
Yeah.
so it's like approaching 3 years,
Yeah.
and wild to think that we just met in person for the first time about 4 or 5 months ago, whatever
I
that was now.
know. I know. I love that though. There's nothing sweeter than like having online friends, and then it's so simple when you get together
Yeah.
because there's no expectation. It's just like, oh yeah, we already know each other, but I actually have proximity now. So it's been really special. And I think that's a stewardship element too, right? Of like, how do you actually serve relationships that are being cultivated virtually so often now? There's seems to be this filter, but there doesn't have to be. I think it's just a matter of truly being authentic with one another.
100%. And I just want to honor your journey too, because like looking at the evolution of everything that you've done and being willing to steward it and step up and really be the vessel that God's using in a multitude of ways, and being willing to shift, being willing to move, being willing to change names, being willing to do a bunch of different things. And I think it's symbolism of God elevating and promoting you to what it is that calling is because at the end of the day, he does change your name when he calls you by name. And so it's a symbolism of
Good.
what you're leaning into and what you're doing.
Thanks, brother. I think it's just an element of consistency, which has been a huge part of your journey. And so, if you guys have not yet got word on the street that there is a new book out that you have to get, it's called The Power of Ownership. And the subtitle is what truly like encapsulates so much of who I am, but the intense need for the church to get on board with this conversation. So while you might be listening and you're like, oh gosh, another religious thing. No, like this is not that. It's truly for the vessels that are meant to carry something big. And you have a massive mantle with this message. And so I want, before we even get into the subtitle, before we get into the concept of the book, will you allow people into that secret place of what happened just like days before this book, which was already written, was to be submitted? Because I think it's really profound.
Yeah, so I had come up with the concept of this book probably 2 years ago, and I was sitting with John Gordon, and we were sitting and talking at his house. I still remember we were watching the Texas-Alabama football game on a Saturday afternoon after he worked me in pickleball, and we're sitting there. And he's asking me to explain what we do within Own It. Like, talk to me about this. Like, because he had just gone through it. Catherine had just gone through it, his wife.
Yep.
And he goes, talk me through like a little bit about what the vision is, like what's happening, what's going on. And so I talked to him. I said, it's all about like taking ownership of your health, personalizing it, true N of one solutions, understanding what's happening inside your body and not worrying about what everybody says is the best workout plan or the best diet or the best supplement or the best sleep routine or the best protocol, but rather what is the best for you. And the only way we know that is if we understand your data, understand your information, understand you from the inside out, and we have something quantifiable to ultimately go off of, to allow data to drive direction and data to determine decisions. And as I went down this road, he's like, that's your book. He goes, that's your book. He's like, it's like true ownership and own it of your health. Like that's what this book is. And so I went home from this trip and I started to outline it on the plane, and it kind of sat there for a little bit. And then about a month later, John's name popped up in my email inbox, and it was he'd made an introduction to Wiley Publishing. And we had a conversation. It was like 45 minutes. And then about an hour after that, I had a contract in my inbox. Like that's the speed of which it moved. And just honor to John for being willing to pull people forward. But I say all that and I preface that because for the next 6 months, I'm struggling and battling with what to do with this book. And so I put this outline together. I send it to John. John sends me an email back. It has literally three words in it. He goes, too many things. He goes, and then underneath it said a lot of first time like major book authors try to put so much into a single book that it doesn't actually get across what you're trying to do. And so he goes, break it down. And so I broke it down, found one concept, I started writing, and I felt so good. And 5 months later, I've got this finished product. 5 days, Tamra, before the editorial deadline that Wiley placed on me.
Yeah.
And so I finished the book, And as I'm sitting there, I was about to hit submit, hit send, and my wife goes, "Hey, Justin, let's go celebrate your book." I was like, "Hey, babe, I just got to get this off." And she's like, "No, no, no, no. Like, you can send it tomorrow. Like, you're done. It's awesome. Just come and celebrate." And I was like, "Okay, fine." So we celebrated, and I went to bed that night, and I woke up at middle of the night.
Yeah.
And I just had this deep discernment and heard this voice of, that's not the book I told you to write.